What's up, guys? BriarRabbit here. Last week, Valve announced the Steam Machine Beta. So what this is they are going to release 300 beta Steam machines with varying specs in them, and the goal is to try and figure out what exactly they want to release as a retail product. And the specs were pretty fascinating. So in this video, I want to talk about what the specs they released are. Also, the potential cost of what a Steam machine could cost a retail consumer, and also a couple conspiracy theories at the end. So let's just jump right into the first graphics card they talked about was the NVIDIA Titan. This is the bad boy of gaming graphics cards right now. It is an actual absolute beast and costs about $1,000 retail. Now, when I talk about what these things cost retail, that's not what Steam's going to pay. That's not what Valve's going to pay. They're going to get a significant discount because they're going to be buying in mass quantities. So I'll talk about that later too. But the NVIDIA Titan, about $1,000 retail. The next card down the list was a GTX 780, a very good card still. These things retail for about $650. The next one down was a GTX 760. These are still good cards, and they cost about $250 retail. Next, we have a GTX 660. This one's aging a bit, and they retail for about $200. Next, they talk about the CPUs, and they included three different configurations of CPUs. The first one was a very nice i7 4770 quad-core 3.4 gigahertz processor that retails right now for about $300. The next one down the list was an i5 4570 quad-core 3.2 gigahertz that retails for about $200. And the last one they talked about was just an i3 processor. Now, there's a ton of i3 processors out there. I just went for kind of the mid-range, found one that was a dual-core 3.4 gigahertz that costs about $110. These are wide-ranging specs, and they're wide range of prices too. So the next thing they talked about was a 1 terabyte hybrid drive. Now, if you're not familiar with a hybrid drive, it's basically a standard spinning disk with a very small SSD on it. The SSD takes all the frequently used data, makes it more easily accessible, faster to access, and makes the whole drive feel like it's a lot faster. Now, I was unable to find a 1 terabyte hybrid drive on Amazon. What I did find was, I was unable to find one with the specs they talked about, but what I did find was one that was pretty comparable, and it cost about $125. The last thing they talked about was a 450 watt power supply. These things are dirt cheap. They cost about 20 bucks. Not a big deal. So I started looking at how much would this thing actually cost if you were to buy like the high end, the low end, the medium range. So I added up all the prices. If you were to get the one, this is retail, with an NVIDIA Titan, the i7 processor, the hybrid drive, the power supply. This doesn't include any of the controllers, like the system board, the memory, any cases or anything. This would just cost, these parts would just cost about $1,450. Now, Valve is not going to pay that, right? We know that they're going to get a significant discount from all these manufacturers because they're going to be selling a ton of these things. So let's imagine, I think this is pretty aggressive, but let's imagine they got 50% off of all of these things. That would still make the NVIDIA Titan with the i7 cost about $725. That doesn't include any of the other stuff, like manufacturing costs, shipping costs, none of that, right? So I think that's pretty aggressive. I doubt we'll see something that is that high end. But when you start talking about the 780 with the i7 processor, then you're talking about $650. Now we're starting to get into the range of what consoles are expected to cost. If we went toward the middle range with the GTX 760, the i5 processor, and all the other stuff, we're talking about $600 retail. 50% off of that would be about $300. And now you're talking like this is home console pricing, right? They could sell that at a profit and make a bundle. And the very low end would be the GTX 660 with a i3 dual-core processor. That would cost retail $450, but if you took 50% off of that, it'd be $225. I think this is too low end, frankly. I think one of the advantages of the Steam box is how powerful it's going to be, and I think it'd be silly just to make a low-powered gaming PC and put it in the living room. I am pretty impressed by these specs. I don't know what they'll actually release. I do know that they cannot release a console at $1,450. That would be madness. Like, I'm sure some people would buy it, but it wouldn't be very successful. Now, the advantage Steam has over Sony or Microsoft is that the only way to get Steam games is through the Steam store. And every time they sell a game, they make a cut. So they could potentially sell something that's very high-end at a pretty significant discount where they take a loss on the hardware sale, but every time a user buys a game, they're making some of that back until eventually they're making all profit off of these things. I don't know how much they'd be willing to do on that. I don't know what their game plan is for that, but it is definitely a reasonable way to do it. It would be cool if they did that. I would enjoy that. You know, get a significant discount on the hardware. I'll buy your games. This thing isn't a Wii. It's not going to be, you know, we buy a Wii, we hook up Wii Sports, and that's the only thing it ever gets played for. This is a hardcore gaming machine they're talking about. And I think people who buy this are going to buy a lot of games, so they could potentially make a lot of money in video game sales. The other thing I was thinking about is why do they have so many graphics cards on this list? And I was wondering, there's been a lot of talk that NVIDIA, they don't support Linux very well. And if you know, the Steam OS is based off Linux, right? So Valve has a pretty high interest in getting great drivers written for Linux. And NVIDIA has not been doing that very well. So maybe the reason that we see such a scattershot of specs for the video cards is just to Steam trying to nudge NVIDIA into creating awesome game drivers for these video cards. That way, Steam or Valve doesn't have to be the only people making these boxes. You know, Dell could make them, Samsung could make them, anybody could make them. They could pick any of these parts off the list, put it out there at whatever price they want, and then the drivers would be there from NVIDIA. We'll have to see. That's all just speculation at this point, but I got to tell you, I wish I was one of the 300 people getting a beta of this. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.